right, welcome back to Queen Chronicles The Series. Today we have a very important topic. It's so fitting for the month, Black History. Black history is American history. So sit back, chat with us as we discuss Black history. Hi everybody, welcome back to Queen's Chronicles. Today we are talking about Black history, and my dad always told me, my dad was a history teacher and now I'm a history teacher. And I absolutely love it. And one thing that I always teach my students is that Black history is American history. They are not two separate entities. If it wasn't for Black history, we wouldn't have American history, and let's just be real. But I love this month because it opens up the conversations that we have, that we should have about race, intersectionality, things like that. How are you guys feeling about this month? What are some things that you're looking forward to?
Can we get a Webster dictionary?
I got you. I got the Spelman dictionary. The number one historically Black college in the nation, if anyone is interested in applying. So basically, intersectionality is when you have two minority parts, I guess, that's not the right wording. And they both kind of form your identity. So me as a Black woman, that's one part, and then me as a woman, that's another part. So those things intersect and they affect my day-to-day life, So I know March is Women's History Month, but specifically African American history and the things that we have experienced and the things that we've overcome. I think we definitely should stir the conversation in the things that we've overcome as Black people too. And one thing I always teach my students is that Black history did not start with slavery. All right?
Come on.
Black history started with the African kings and queens that we had when we were in Africa. Okay, our lives were taken away. Our lives were stolen from us when we were forced on the boat. However, Black history did not start with slavery. And I hate that part gets taken out of the history books. And actually the first week of classes every year, something I do with my students is we do an activity. It's called History Depends on Who's Telling the Story. And what we've seen is obviously when you have textbooks and stuff, when you have white people or people of non-African American descent, of course the textbooks or things that we watch on TV are going to be a little tainted or I guess biased towards whoever's writing the book. So I think that's one of the most important things we must know as Black people. And I think that will kind of change how we see ourselves as a Black person in today's society, knowing that no, we did not start off as slaves. We started off as kings and queens.
Amen.
And Jesus was Black.
Okay.
Fight me. Christianity, hold on, I'm about to get started. Christianity did not start in Europe. Okay? It did not start in Europe, all right? The Bible says Jesus had hair like wool. White people don't have hair like wool.
Passion.
You feel it? No, not this. You feel this at the top? You feel this at the top? That's a wool blanket right there. Can we get a close-up?
Passion.
So when you're proud, when you take that extra step and you do your research on where you come from, I definitely do believe that it can kind of change how you feel about yourself, the way that you see yourself, your identity, things like that. But when you see yourself as, I just came from slaves, or I just came from, mammy, and the stereotypes that we saw over the years. But when you see yourself in a different picture, like, no, we were kings and queens. Like, we were the Egyptians were doing brain surgery. They had a sewage system. They don't give the Mesopotamians enough credit. They always paint them as these white Middle Eastern people. No, these people were Black people. These people, they created astronomy and mathematics. Like, I just get so excited about this topic. And then when I was at Spelman, that just made it worse. My dad was like, we shouldn't have sent her there because she's like a Black Panther. And now I'm making kids into Black Panthers. So I'm sorry. But anyways, what are you guys' thoughts about,
Yeah.
So, intersectionality. What was it? Wakanda forever.
Forever. Y'all see my shirt?
I think we don't celebrate us enough. I think that it's great to have 28. First of all, they gave us the shortest month of the year. Has anybody noticed that we have the shortest month of the year?
29 on leap year.
Which is like every 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Right.
But I feel like that I feel like the world responds to us because how we treat us, and meaning that we as Black people, we have to, like you said, be proud. I think it was a story I read maybe last year or year before last, And let me say, I don't know how true it is. I was not present. But a story goes something like this, says that there was a guy who was in a cab, and he was in New York City, and the driver of the cab was of African descent, meaning he had a really strong accent, and somehow race came up in the conversation, and so the black man who was in the back seat asked the black man in the front seat. He says, why don't you guys like us? Meaning, I guess there's a rumor that Africans don't like, Americans. And he says, because you don't know your worth. And he was like, what? And he was like, see, he said, I'm a cab driver, but I'm still a king. He says, my title, my job does not define who I am, because my ancestors were kings and queens. So when I come over here, I know who I am. So you can't talk down to me. You can't put me in just anything. So you are offended by my knowledge of my worth. You're offended because I know who I am as a black man, as an African American man. I know who I am. And I feel like that when we as a community, when we as a culture fully grasp, like you were saying, that we come from kings and queens, there's some of the stuff that we do and we put up with, we won't allow. So I feel like we have to, as much as I love celebrating, you hear all the, I Have a Dream speeches come on now. I think they play Dr. Martin Luther King on every channel all month long. You hear about the Malcolm X's and all. You hear about all these great people, but if those people who fought for us to have rights, they were literally begging us to vote, to do our basic, American citizen right to vote. But there were people who were bitten by dogs, and there were people who, were hosed down and spit on, all so that we could have rights in 2019. What are we doing with it? What are we doing with it?
What's so interesting about what you say is that, I've heard, people say like how arrogant Africans are. But just going back to your taxi cab driver story, like it makes sense. It's not arrogance, it's pride. And so when you see someone who is of African descent who appears to be arrogant, think about Trini's story. Like, I hear that Africa is one of the most beautiful places in the world. The houses are absolutely beautiful. And so if I'm from a place that looks like that, I have value in who I am. And to see other people who look like me when I come to the United States, and you all think so low of yourself, it bothers me.
You don't want to be associated with that.
Right. And it's not arrogance, it's because of pride of self.
I mean, and what you were saying, Trinice, part of the way that the slave masters kind of groomed the slaves was making them forget what life was like in Africa. So they weren't allowed to speak their language. They weren't allowed to eat their foods. They weren't allowed to, and that was a part of the grooming process. They wanted them to disconnect from what they experienced, in Africa, so that when they had kids and those kids had kids, what is happening right now would happen, which is to forget where we come from, where, they want what we know about Black history to start from where they want it to start, and it's, Africa has, to this day, now it's been, imperialized because of colonization, things like that, but Africa had the most natural resources more than any other country. Maybe Asia is like maybe neck and neck, but Africa was rich in natural resources. And so we've always gold, salt, things like that. Those are all things that the rest of the world was like dying to get at. And that's why the richest man in the world was Mansa Musa. He was an African king in Egypt. The richest man to ever walk the earth was an African king, Mansa Musa. He upset Egypt's economy. They said 200 years. He spent so much money he was a Muslim king. He went on his Hajj, his pilgrimage, and they said he spent so much money in Egypt. He upset the whole economy for 200 years. But they don't teach you those things. Cleopatra was a Black woman. Who else was it? I don't know if I'm saying it right. Hatshepsut, something like that. African queen. Like, they don't teach you those things, and so that's why you have to look at, okay, then who's writing the textbooks? Who's writing these things? It's the same for, like Christopher Columbus. I always tell people this. People always say Christopher Columbus discovered America. No, he did not. The Africans and the Asians had already been to the Americas way before the Europeans had ever got there. Matter of fact, the African kings gave the Europeans the maps to get to America. You know what I'm saying?
You better
They
teach
don't.
right now,
They
honey.
don't teach. They don't teach these things. You know, I mean, Europe literally. I mean, the European voyagers, the Columbus and who else? Not Montezuma, Hernan Cortez. These people, they went down to Africa because I mean that's where everything they needed was their sugar, salt, all those things. They went down to Africa. They got those maps because the Africans and Asians had already been to the Native Americans. And going off topic, that's why the Native Americans were so, I guess, open and welcoming to the Europeans when they came over, because the Africans and Asians, they didn't have that mindset of I'm taking over the world like the Europeans had. The Africans, especially African kings and queens, they were like, we just want to trade with you. We going back. Why do we want to take over more territory? We're rich. We don't need any more territory.
Yeah.
The Europeans were the only ones that were struggling. They had a terrible farming season, so the weather was bad. They didn't have any food. You know, the crops were terrible. They didn't have any medicine. See, Africa, they had hospitals, and like I said, they were doing surgery and stuff, so they lived long lives. The Europeans, they had a life expectancy of like 20 years old because they had diseases, and they didn't have a sewage system, so it was rats carrying all types of things. Like, these are the things that they don't teach our young kids, and so they grow up thinking that I came from slavery. My you know, this is who I am. This is a part of my identity, and absolutely slavery is a part of our identity. We can't erase that. You know, as painful as it was, but at the same time, we have to understand that sometimes things have been purposely taken out of the textbooks. Things have been purposely placed on television, like the starving kid in Africa, or that they show those terrible scenes of those African, you know, but they don't show those beautiful shopping centers in Ghana and those beautiful, you know what I'm saying? So I guess I would say that for parents who are, and thankfully I had a dad who was like a history
buff.
When I said he knows everything I know about,
he passed it on.
let me tell you, anything I know about history, I got it from my dad. So, you know, just make sure you're having those conversations with them.
But what happens to, you know, and I'm sitting here like ready to take notes, right?
No, seriously.
But what happens to parents who don't know, and they're now left to teach kids who don't know?
Yeah.
And so that cycle continues. I wonder how much different, you know, our youth would be if they knew and embraced
especially our young
some
men.
of the information that you've just provided.
Especially our young men, like but to me that goes back to knowing who you are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It goes back to knowing your worth, because it's as the story said, you know, as the front seat driver said, he said, I know who I am.
Yeah.
And so because I know who I am, I walk different, I talk different, I live different. It's not just a saying that we say, you know, we're in church, you know, I'm with God now, so then my life is different. It's when I understand what I bring to the table, you can't intimidate me, right? And so I think that what's missing in our community is that knowing your work part, knowing who you are as a black man, right? Knowing who you are as a black woman and what you bring. You know, you think about, you know, some of the people that Danielle said that I cannot pronounce.
Oh, yes.
You know,
All
so
of
the
them.
king
Yes.
and the queen
The richest
and the
person.
and then the other
Richest
I'm
person
gonna
in
name
the
my,
world.
I'm
What's
gonna
his
name my
name?
next
Mansa
baby that.
Musa.
Mansa Musa.
I'm gonna Google him when I go home.
Look
I'm
him up.
trying to tell you because there's something about knowing that I don't have to be a basketball player.
Yep.
Not that there's nothing wrong with being a basketball player, but I don't have to be a football player. Again, nothing's wrong with being in sports or entertainment, but we're led to, our black boys
That's
are led to, that's the only way you get out the ghetto is if you dribble a ball or you can throw a ball or catch a ball. But what about being a doctor? What about being a lawyer? What about owning your own? What about making Nike or owning Nike? You know, I watched a movie one time. I can't believe. I think it was a movie. I like movies, and there was a little boy in there, and his family was playing football and on the field. All his cousins. He said, "Why are you not out there playing?" He says, "Do I want to play for a team or do I want to own the team? I'm working to own the team. Let's teach our young black men and our young black girls to be an engineer." Danielle's sister is excellent, and I can't even pronounce her major in college because there's a whole bunch of words to it.
Wow.
Biological engineering and mathematics and computer science and a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, all right.
At
And
A&T.
and she's receiving money to study that.
Yeah, like, I mean, doing big things, but let's tell our kids, you can be that. You can be a biochemist. You can be a brain surgeon.
But
Let's teach them things other than dribbling a ball and catching it.
But you know what? It's that thought process of fast money. You know, I've got to do what's going to get me the fast money to get me to arrive at the place I want to be. This is how I'm going to get out. I got to make my money quick. I don't have 4 years to study. You know,
Fast money leads to jail.
But I also think that it's important to understand that there are systems systematically set up for our black men and women to not feel like there are systems that have been strategically placed, i.e. the criminal justice system. There are systems that are strategically placed for our black men and women to feel like the only way out is to dribble a basketball, or the only way out is to sing or to dance or to do something that doesn't require, I'm not going to say knowledge because it takes a lot of knowledge to be able to play basketball and stuff. I tried to play, I was terrible. But you know, so
I was winded.
Oh God, yeah, and I was very out of shape. They kept me on the bench. I wasn't hurt. 20 years later, I'm still kind of. Anyways, you know, and so and like I said, that's why, and I teach my students this because when we talk about these topics, because it can be very hard for them to hear these things. I teach 5th through 8th, so my 8th graders are like, you know, they've heard it all, but my 5th graders are like, when we talk about slavery, when we talk about those things, they're like holding on to my every word because, you know, they don't know what to do with those topics. And so I think it's important for us to have those conversations. And what I tell them, I say this: listen, if you don't like the way your community is right now, go to college, get a degree, and make it change yourself. Mm-hmm. We can't depend on anyone else. It's your responsibility. And I think as a kid, you think that mommy's going to make it better, daddy's going to make it better, and that's it. And when it's your turn to make it better, you think you shift the responsibility on someone else. No, and I'm not saying I'm not going to say that because you can, but certain things, you can't do everything at once. But I do believe that if we encourage our African American sisters and brothers, like, if you don't like something in your community, go out and change it. Like, one thing I don't like about a lot of the I shouldn't say that. One thing that I wish about specifically NFL players is with the Colin Kaepernick thing. I just wish that more of them took a public platform against the kneeling during the anthem, you know. And unfortunately, like I said, there are systems set up to keep the black man, keep the black woman down. And so, you know, you have to be very intentional in everything that you do. But I hated the fact that a lot of them didn't feel like they should share, you know what I'm saying, their true feelings because they were afraid of losing their job or what can happen
to them.
It's like career suicide, you know. But that is the world that we live in. But I think we just, as black women and men, just looking at your shirt and the black people that have come before us, the things that they have done in order for us to be able to have this platform, this right here, us to be able to talk about this thing, you know what I'm saying, without being afraid of walking outside and somebody, you know what I'm saying, doing something or being upset with us. Like, they have fought for that opportunity for us. So be intentional, be proud, be courageous. If you feel like something is not right, speak up and say something. Don't worry about what somebody else is going to say. Don't worry about whether it's career suicide. Let me tell you, what God has for you is for you. And a lot of times, like we talked about last week, you know, a lot of times God puts us in experiences so that we can be a light to someone else. And I really wish that more African Americans would stand up and would speak against some things that are happening within our culture.
Right there on that note, I'm gonna make a comment at some point, honey bunny. Is that so? What's your take on when you see a company do something they say was an accident regarding African Americans? So the most recent one that I can think of, I think it was Prada.
Right.
Who was it a monkey? Was a keychain?
Yes, that looked like a monkey.
It was a keychain, right? That came with their purse.
Figure that is derogatory to African Americans.
Yes,
looked like a monkey.
And so what happened was,
big red lips.
yeah, and what they said, it was an accident, right? And my theory on accidents, right? Be like, how many accidents? An accident happens once. I'm sorry.
One accident.
That went through a vetting process. Before that was put into somebody's machine and somebody printed it, somebody had to draw it up. It was an idea, an immediate, it went through the proper stages. So what are you guys' take? Another thing was there was
and it was more than one?
It was in stores.
This has been happening for
But wait, I got one more for you.
This is not
There was another story recently that came out of a well-known minister who went into a Gucci store in Vegas and felt that he was treated, he was discriminated against because of his color of his skin. He was a black man. And so he got on his, his live or whatever, and he wanted us to boycott Gucci, right? The caveat was that he was wearing a Gucci sweatshirt.
I'm not boycotting.
Right? and not
My cousin, I'm sorry.
and not on, but my
Louis is my nephew.
don't do it. Don't
I don't know
engage
who
it.
you're talking about.
But
Who's Louis?
Gucci and Louis Vuitton, don't do it. But my question is, when do we say as black people that we're not going to take it? Because if we hit them where it hurts,
Yeah.
which is in their pockets, you'll find less companies that do it. It's becoming far too common where we're getting an apology from some main name brand company, store, restaurant that in 2019 should just know better. So how do we, when we think about our kings and our queens that we come from, how do we say enough's enough, and what do we do as a community to say we're not taking it anymore?
Well,
I have a comment on that one. I mean, the reality is the world is laughing at us, and sometimes our behavior is quite laughable. So how do we expect for Prada, Starbucks, H&M, all of the countless numbers of companies to respect us when we don't respect us? I mean, that's real talk. We are killing each other. We always talking about Black Lives Matter, but we'll kill a brother. Nobody fights about that. There's police brutality, and we come out in record numbers, but snitches get stitches. So I think that there's a level of personal responsibility that we have to have, because you talked about black men a while ago. There is no queen without a king, right? The truth is we're queening ourselves as women, but if our kings don't stand before us and don't stand and lead our communities, like we had our king standing up here talking about boycotting Gucci with a Gucci sweatshirt on. Come on, king.
Yeah.
You know, but
Come on, king.
people can do things like this because of all of the things we do to each other in our music. Our music is horrible. More white men buy rap music than we do. We are putting out product of self-hate for others to consume, and then we're expecting people to treat us something different than we taught us to be treated, right? So we're teaching other people how to treat us. We treat our women, we degrade our women, right? The love of family. Now, I do understand, like Danielle said, there are systems put in place to continue to perpetuate this. But we need to wake up. It is 2019. We know that it's systematically designed for men to be away from the household. When do we stand up against that and say, no, that cycle ends with me? Now, I do believe that there are some great brothers and some great sisters out here who are doing some great things for family and community. But if more of us don't get on board, please be advised, Prada is not the end.
Oh my gosh.
but it's so funny, because even with those big name companies, they don't care about us.
No.
We can boycott all day long, but it's those people who can pay $4,000 for a keychain that's going to continue to support them. They look like us. So they don't care that in our community we're boycotting, because those big name people, they're still going to support them.
You think the publicity's done?
I don't know that.
I don't think for him it was.
No,
I think he was genuinely offended.
Yeah. But he was going to take on
I'm
his.
talking about putting out products or things like that to just kind of get some conversation
Those,
going.
those things have been happening for years.
Okay.
And
It's just
be-
more
now
blatant.
now that we have technology like phones and stuff, now they're being recorded.
Right.
Same for police brutality. Police brutality has been happening since
Oh yeah.
we got over here. Now, unfortunately, now we have cameras and things like that, even though sometimes that still doesn't change the outcome. But those things have been happening forever. And the best way is it's the same as the bus boycott. Rosa Parks, who was the leader, who was chosen to be the leader of the voice boycott, they said, listen, we're tired of sitting in the back of the bus. Stop riding the bus. Before then, the protests, the things like that, nobody was paying them any mind. Black people stopped riding the bus. Black people stopped spending their money.
They stood together.
They stood together and they stopped spending their money. Now, the problem with black people sometimes is that, like in any big organization, Gucci, Prada, all of them will all tell you, black people are the biggest spenders. We are the biggest spenders. Let me tell you, the wealthiest. That's why all of the commercials are tailored for black people. They have black songs in the background. They have black people that are the actors. They have shirts that look like, because I mean, black men created swag, and that's. I'm just being
Point
real.
blank period.
Point blank period.
And I want to
Black-
say
black
black
men
men look good with it.
They
honey.
do. I'm telling you. So
Swagalicious.
that's the truth. So Black people are the biggest spenders, and so they know how to target certain audiences, and they know to target Black audiences. White people, on the other hand, they still spend, but it's billionaires and millionaires of people, millionaires and billionaires. They don't spend their money. It's Black people.
They reinvest.
They're standing in line. They don't have a college. They don't have not a college degree. They don't have a high school degree, but they're standing outside for the new Jordans. But your lights are but you won't stand in line to vote because the line is too long. You know what I'm saying? Like I definitely agree that like there are things. It's a personal responsibility. Like there are things as a people that we have to change. We have to. Two people are not going to make a noise. You know what I'm saying? We need, like the Bible says, 2 or 3. We need thousands and thousands of people to stand up and to boycott certain things. Now, the problem with that is, like I said, we have to be very mindful because we are a minority. We have to be very mindful. Like, I remember when I was at, well, I'm not going to say, I was with an organization and it was a lot of protests going on. And they told us, don't wear our organization that we were working for. Don't wear any paraphernalia like that because basically it's career suicide. So that's another thing. That's another aspect of it. You have to be mindful, like with social media and stuff like that. Like when I was applying for jobs, one thing that I hated was like, you know, I always share the history videos. Like I said, I love history, and knowing that like certain things that I feel towards our president, I'm just be real. Certain things I feel about the systems that are created, the laws that are passed. I can't share those things because of my race, because of who I am, and I don't want it to. And because we live in a society where people believe the opposite of what I believe, you know, it's that's another aspect of it. So, but definitely, I definitely agree that there are certain things that we have to take responsibility for. But at the same time, while we are taking responsibility, we have to be very, I guess, cognizant of the fact that because we know that there are systems set up, we have to take that personal responsibility. Like we have to. Like it's like we have to do that.
It's a responsibility.
And you know what? When you were talking, it was a thought. It was right,
and I was
like there. But the thought was, I think about how we speak to each other, right? And for example, the N word or the B word, and so the B word is a very common phrase used now. Say, "Hey, girl, how you doing?"
Yeah.
Now, I was born in 1980 and I grew up in the 90s. In my generation, you called me the B word, slim. We were going.
Yes.
That was fighting words.
That was.
When did it be okay? When did it become okay to be called a female dog?
When celebrities started doing it.
Ah.
When people who were in positions were doing it, and it sounded so cool, or so now it's like I want to be like this person on Real Housewives. You know, I want to be like they say it, and they're good girlfriends, and so now everyone's using it.
Well, the definition changed. Like the word, the N word. You know, nigger. All right, we all grown people. The word nigger, the definition changed. It was used to demean us, but now rappers, like you said, people like that. They have changed the meaning of it. So now it's nigga, and that means like you my friend, or if you're talking to somebody, it's a term of endearment. Oh, that's my boo, so that's my, you know what I'm saying? So I think also definitely celebrities, but the definition changed, and that's
but the problem with that theory is that it changed in our community. Right?
It's still the word.
Nigga didn't make it to Webster dictionary, right? It's in the Urban Dictionary, right? And so when you're on the street, or you're in your car, and you're blasting this song talking about my nigga this and my nigga, right? And you saying nigga, right? And I'm a 15-year-old boy living in South Dakota, where we really are the minority.
South Dakota, St. Charles County.
You know, where we really are the minority. Where we really are the minority, and they are hearing this, right? They don't understand that when they say it to us, it's an issue because your skin don't match my skin. But if they do, though, how can you say to me, I can say the word, you can't say the word? It's like me being a parent and me cursing and saying, Johnny, don't say what you hear me say, but Johnny's going to mimic whatever he sees me do. And so we have to, all the time that we feed into the negativity that's portrayed, that people see about us. You know what I'm saying? Young men, pull your pants up. Why are you barely being able to walk? Because your pants are at your kneecap.
And they tight though, like skinny pants, but your butt is out. That just drives me crazy. It just drives me crazy. we continue to teach people how to treat us.
Mhm.
We continue, like you said, we own swag, and then people are always. What did Paul Mooney's made this statement? He said, it's the truth. We are idolized. Women go and inject things in their lips. They inject things in their butts, to look
I'll
like
have one,
our
so I'll do
women. Well, I mean, okay, we won't go there but okay. They inject things and they mimic us, but they don't really want to be us.
Oh, yeah.
They hate us. They want to teach us to hate us, but then we hate us too. All this hate that is coming in our direction. And I think it's because we have gotten to a place where we feel like we lack a common cause. No, we have one. We still need to be on that girls trip. We still need to be on the bus. We still need to be protesting and things like that. But a little bit of comfort and a little bit of middle class, a little bit of suburbs will make us forget where we came from.
Oh,
And also it's a pacifier for us to suck on, right? You alright? You making it, you good. So I'm in my 5-bedroom house, but I came from the projects or what have you. And so
now I won't go back to them and bring nobody else up.
That's right.
And now I don't go back and bring nobody else up.
Where, the county that I live in,
Charles.
Oh, yes, thank Charles.
I didn't know you live in Charles.
Why you gonna say that?
And so, but it's funny because I've been there for a while, and one of the things that I've seen is there's a lot of interracial couples, right?
Mhm.
But also what I've seen is that older Caucasians and older African Americans are not in favor of that. Because they're so used to that kind of divide that they want to keep it that way. So when my grandchild, is dating an African American man, I don't necessarily like that. But this is what I'm seeing. So you're seeing a lot of biracial children, kind of running around. I didn't, I grew up in New York City, and so I didn't see, I'm 48, I didn't see a lot of, the racism that I've heard about, things like that, till I came down here. It was 2008, and I was working for an agency in Charles County, and also St. Mary's in Calvert. And the agency that I worked with, part of the job was to keep juveniles out of the detention center, right? And so I did assessments with the families, and pass it on to someone to do the work. I went to this gentleman's house in St. Mary's County. And when I walked into the house, we walked past the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, and we sat in the den. This is 2008. And we sat purposefully. I was sitting in front of him, and behind him was his Ku Klux Klan outfit that must have just come out the cleaners. I'm talking about hood and everything. This is 2008.
Here?
And
Down here?
2008 in St. Mary's County.
Wow.
And he says to me, and his son had gotten some trouble and was in danger of being detained. And so our job was to kind of keep him in the home. And he says to me, he said, I don't like your kind. He said, but if you're going to prevent my son from going to jail, I guess I'm going to have to work with you niggas.
Oh, no, you're not.
And again, now mind you, his house wasn't like, it was down the beaten road. You had to go, and I had to sit there. And so clearly it was purposeful that I saw your outfit. And I sat there, I did my assessment, did whatever. When I came back to the agency and I assigned you to a young lady, and I said to her, I said, listen, if you go to the house and there's more than 2 people there, don't go in. Don't go there in the middle of the night, late at night, stuff like that. Try to do as many visits out of the house. In working with the young man, one of the things that was an issue for him is he didn't have the same values his father did. And he actually was dating a African American girl that his dad didn't know about.
Oh, Lord.
And so he was getting in a lot of trouble because he was having such conflict. And we couldn't tell that to the father. Because the first thing he would have thought is that this African American worked with him, you're the reason.
Yeah.
But my point is, 2008.
That's not that long ago.
I just went to Mississippi to see my best friend 2 weeks ago, and they are still waving high those Confederate flags. These were government buildings, the police stations, the churches, her neighbors. Flying high the Confederate flag. So, I think people think that because we're in 2019 that those ideals have just kind of disappeared. But when you have someone like, and they have, I mean, they've always been out, but they've been kind of on the hush hush, especially having the first black president, and you know, we were trying to move towards a more progressive society where we are open and all inclusive. But now we have a president in office who really encourages those people to come out and to say how they feel about those risks. And so people are like, what is wrong with these people? Now they coming out with these new ideas. No. They've just been in college, we call them enclaves. And what they are is they're these secret hidden spaces. They never go away. But because they don't feel comfortable saying how they truly feel out to the community, they create these small spaces. And then they wait for a leader who's there who will allow them to speak how they, you know, really feel. And then now that's why we see so many. I feel like I've seen so many I've seen Confederate flags around here, you know, and that was not something that I saw unless I went to the South or when I was in school in Atlanta. So like knowing that just because it's 2019 or 2008, like those, if anything, is kind of intensified, you know, because everything that they wanted, you know, everything that they did not want is happening, like immigration, things like that. One of their biggest fears, I've always said, is, you know, and they said in 2025, white people are going to be the minority.
Right.
And so that's why we have Trump, who is trying to build this wall against immigrants and things like that, because their fear is that everything that they did to minorities will happen to them because they will now be a minority.
All right, so we gotta do closing comments. We're gonna start this way and then, you know, work it around.
All right. In closing, I say, if we shall overcome, let me be the one. So let it start with me. Let me treat my sister like she's my sister. Let me treat my brother like he's my brother. Let me queen somebody. Let me king somebody. So show each other love and respect.
Amen.
Vocabulary matters. Not just how you treat yourself, but how you treat others. You know, and just learn your history. Like I learned some good stuff today that at 49 I did not know. Embrace your history.
I'm Googling that king, I'm trying to tell you.
I was going to say, do your research. I guess similar to what everyone else has said, love you, be proud of who you are, be proud of who you came from, be proud of your story, our story. You know, our story had many trials and tribulations and of course slavery, things like that, but one thing that we can say that many other races cannot say is that despite all of the setbacks that we had, we are still here. We are still progressing. We are the most tenacious group of people that this world has ever seen, and that's where you come from. So be proud of that.
And I want to first say shout out to our Black History teacher, Miss
Yes.
Danielle Mangum. Miss Danielle Mangum over there.
And to my Black History teacher, Reverend Daniel Terrence Mangum,
who was forever telling us that Jesus was black.
Yes.
But I think everybody said it. You know, everybody's pretty much said it. Vocabulary, know your worth. You know, king of king, queen, crown a queen.
Yeah.
I think we've all said it. I think my thing is, again, just be responsible.
Yeah.
Be responsible for the race you're born into, right? I'm privileged to be a black woman.
Absolutely.
Right? It is an honor for me to be a black woman, and I'm going to be honored to raise, whether it be my kids or my godkids or my niece, to raise beautiful black men and beautiful black women. We are powerful. We are powerful in our own individual place, but I'm 10 times more powerful when I link up to somebody else who's powerful. Because then we make change. Be the change you want to see. Amen?
Amen.
So as always, thank you so much for watching us, you guys. We actually look forward to getting in front of you guys and talking about whatever comes up this week. And so we look forward to doing it again next week. Remember, this is the month of love. This is the month of Black History. And thank you for watching what?
Queen Chronicles The Series.
Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.